Good morning, and welcome to this brief service of worship. I will call it worship because wherever two or more are gathered, be it in a physical room or across the ether, and when word and bread and cup are partaken of, it is worship. So, good morning and welcome. Our reading for today is the reading about Thomas. And my tagline for this sermon is doubting everybody. Because Thomas didn't do anything different than anybody else. They all had the opportunity to see, and so did he. So I've decided to shorten the reading to just John chapter 20, verses 24 through 29. But Thomas, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the mark of the nails in his hands, and put my finger in the mark of the nails of my hand in his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were again in the house, and Thomas was with them. Although the doors were shut, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your fingers here and see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it in my side. Do not doubt, but believe." Thomas answered him, "My Lord and my God." Jesus said to him, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe." So it starts with what the women and the other disciples have already seen. They've already put their own hands in Jesus' side. They know he has risen. And when they proclaim that gospel to Thomas, he says no differently than they, in the sense of, unless I see those marks and put my fingers in those marks, I will not believe. Now they were in the house, frightened. The doors were shut up. And although the doors were shut, Jesus came, and for the third time he says, "Peace be with you." For people who are not at peace, having your master say to you, "Be at rest, be peaceful," is something that we all need to hear and that we need to know. And he gives Thomas the opportunity to do what he asked, to place his hands in the marks of the nails on his hands and on his side. And Thomas, of course, believes. And I've always loved that proclamation. He preaches the gospel right back to him and says, "My Lord and my God." He knows that this is his master and is the Son of God. And then we get into the sticky theme of John that it can always be kind of hard to understand sometimes. And it's this theme of seeing, of what it means to see and know who we are and who God is. If you're interested in another place where this whole seeing trope comes up, John 9, that whole chapter and the healing of the blind man is a good example. So have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe. Now, for many, they think that this is written to us. This is a blessing for those who come after. And yes, it is absolutely true that seeing with our own eyes the incarnate Jesus is not a necessity for believing in Jesus. We take it on faith. But I'd like to encourage us to think about this just as, I'm going to go back to that tagline, doubting everybody. all of us have this wonderful God-given gift of questioning skepticism, of being willing to ask of our world and of our God, what is going on? Is this what's really happening? This is a gift and a blessing. But what Jesus is inviting us into is the opportunity to see the work of Jesus in the world around us. So there are many times that we have not seen physically with our own eyes the incarnate Jesus, but we have seen the fruits of what it means that the Spirit of Christ is working in our community around us. So for each of us, those who have felt, experienced, and known the power of the incarnate Jesus, we are blessed, because though we may not have seen it, we have felt it and have come to believe. Now, as we come to this table and whatever you may have around you to use as communion elements, may they be blessed as we bless this bread and this cup. This sacred gift, this blessed opportunity that even though we are in our own homes, we still commune across distances by taking of this bread and cup together. So we remember on the night when Jesus was to be betrayed and he and his disciples were gathered in the upper room, he took bread, blessed it, broke it, and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body, broken for you." In the same manner, after they had eaten, he took the cup, blessed it, poured it, and gave it to them, saying, "This is my blood, poured out for the new covenant and the forgiveness of sins." The Apostle Paul reminds us that every time we eat this bread and drink this cup, we proclaim the Lord's life, death, and resurrection until he comes again. Let us give thanks. God, like Thomas, we stand in the void, asking that our doubts be taken away and that we know in our heart of hearts what you are doing and seeing and moving in us. Although we may not be able to place our hands in the mark of the nails, you give us assurances and hope every day that this bread and this cup are symbols for us, are polar stars to help us remember and know that what you did and are doing is never taken away by the earthly circumstances that surround us, but that in this bread and in this cup, we get to do this in remembrance of you until you come again. May it be so. Amen. And I invite you with me now to take a piece of bread and a representation of Christ's blood and to partake. And now I say good morning, and we will see you next week and every week after until we can meet again and when two or more of us are allowed to gather. Amen.